Good morning, and welcome to my hometown of Orlando, Florida. Please, while you're here, spend lots because our economy is dependent on it. Enjoy your time here. So one of the things I want to talk to you today about is how the world is changing. And as we think about communicating with consumers, how do we think about the change in technologies, the change in brands, the change in consumers, the change in behaviors? So, the world has really changed. You think about the way we live, the way we love, the way we share messages, the way we look at pictures, the way we remember, the way we research when we get a new diagnosis, the way we diagnose ourselves, the way we announce the birth of a new child. It's all through digital. It's all through a connected world where it's no longer just about the physical. It's about the physical and the digital together. And the bad news for an audience here that's really focused on communications is that marketing is failing. Marketing is failing because in 1965, if we wanted to reach 80% of the US audience age 18 to 49, it would take 3 60-second television spots on network television. Today, to accomplish the exact same thing, we would need 117 60-second spots. Because of the fragmentation of media, it's really, really difficult to reach our audience. Similarly, in 1970, it would be maybe 500 advertisements that the average US consumer was exposed to. Today, it's over 30,000. How do you think about breaking through such a fragmented media landscape to really get your message to your consumer? And the worst part is that consumers don't even trust us. They don't want to hear our message because they don't think that we're actually being honest with them. What they trust is what other people like them or their friends or their family have to say. So what becomes really important for us as advertisers or marketers is to figure out how to reach the influencers that are going to reach our audience. And at the end of the day, it's really technology that's changed everything, right? You think about, in 1984, most people could name someone in their bank. Today, 1 in 5 people can name a person that's in their bank. Why is that? It's because of the ATM. And the ATM's great. I mean, it's really efficient. It allows us to go in, get our money, don't have to deal with anybody. But at the end of the day, it's also separated people, right? So technology is about isolation, but the really strange thing is that at the same time, it has made us more social than we've ever been before. So how do we think about really embracing technology and the social behaviors that are driven by technology to connect with our consumers? Digital, in the marketing landscape, we also often think about digital as a word or maybe a marketing channel. It's not. It's the world. It's the world we live in. We have to embrace digital because it's everything, right? I mean, we all walk around with one of these, and today we've probably checked the news, we've checked the weather. Maybe some of us use GPS to find our way here. Some of you may be tweeting right now. If you are, the last name is Lucas. But we function in a world that is seamless between digital and physical. We don't live with technology. We live in technology. Really important distinction in terms of the change in behavior, how consumers, us, all of us, how we behave on a daily basis. It is where we learn, like, love, consume, challenge, change. So really scary to think about as marketers. In 2012, this consumer, highly complex interplay of the consumer's world, our brand's world, or the message we're trying to get out there, the technology landscape that is constantly changing. How do we connect all that? And a lot of it comes down to data. The best part about technology and digital is you can measure everything, so making sure that you've got a measurable plan that is constantly reevaluated so that you can optimize your message. One of the things that we do a little bit differently at Sapien Nitro, we will start with your typical pie chart of what your media should look like. And we say to our clients at the beginning of the year, if your pie chart looks like this at the end of the year, we've failed. Because the whole thing that digital allows you to do is constantly change and adapt so that you can make sure your message is in the right channel at the right time, reaching the right audience. So this is really the age of convergence. It's the convergence of communications, of brands, of digital technology. And the scary part is that the oil that really greases the wheels is consumer and consumer influence. If they choose to turn you off, you're done. Those wheels are going to come to a grinding halt. So really being able to adapt to that consumer influence, find the right influencers, enable them, give them a voice, really crucial. We start by understanding the ecosystem. When we talk about ecosystem, we talk about both brand ecosystem and consumer ecosystem. In this case, let me talk about the consumer ecosystem. This is your consumer today, right? They live seamlessly between physical and digital. When they call a call center, or they walk into a store, or they're on the website or a mobile device, they're not thinking, oh, now I'm talking to the web guys, now I'm talking to the call center guys. They're thinking this is one brand, one company, one experience, one message, and they have the expectation that that's how you're going to behave. And this is your consumer. It's where, when, and how they want to interact with you. It's not when you want to interact with them. I think most importantly, if you take one thing away, and Kathy said this too, when you think about the consumer today, you can't segment anymore. I'll use myself as an example. I'm a professional woman. I'm also the mother of a 7-year-old. On Saturday morning, I have to make sure that I've got snack at the soccer game on time. On Sunday, I'm serving communion. Friday night, I'm out with the girls. And the entire time, I'm walking around with this. And I might choose to interact and communicate with your brand. So my frame of reference, my frame of mind, very, very different. So if you try and segment me as a 30 to 50-year-old white female that lives in Central Florida with a certain household income, you're never going to get me. I'm no longer held captive. I'm not in front of television where you're just going to blast a message at me and I'm going to hear it. In fact, today, this picture creeps me out. Today, you really have to think about creating a web where you can interact with consumers where they are, when they are, allow an invitation into a communication with you as opposed to just trying to target. And the most important thing to remember is it's not just the person that you're trying to reach, it's the influencers, right? So if we are looking to reach an audience of teens or tweens, it's not just their friends that we want to talk to, but we also want to talk to, their guidance counselors and their parents and other influencers in their lives. I love this quote. I wish I knew who said it. I don't tell my friends about your brand because I like your brand. I tell my friends about your brand because I like my friends. Really important thing to think about because we often think, oh, well, we're putting a message out there, we're really cool, I'm Coca-Cola or whatever, and that's why they're talking about me. No, they're talking about them or Coca-Cola or anyone because they have put a message out there that's relevant, that allows someone to identify with them, to say, this is part of me, and I want to share it with my friends because I believe this is a passion point that I share, and I want others to know that I identify with it. This is another important one. Successful brands today are not those who tell the best stories. Successful brands are those whose consumers tell the best stories about them. So I think about 1984. We all remember, this is your brain. This is your brain on drugs. Any questions? That was a really powerful message, right? And at the time, you put that out on broadcast media, and it reached a large segment, had a big impact. It's a message that we all remember today. It wouldn't work today. The reason it wouldn't work is because you can't just put out a couple of 60-second spots and reach those teens and tweens that the message was trying to reach. Today, the way that we'd want to approach it, we'd want to say, who are those teens and tweens that are already out there that passionately believe in an anti-drug message and are already willing to advocate and really stand up for that? Let's go give them a voice. Let's go reach them in social media. Let's go seed that message and start to amplify that message. Then let's go buy a television spot or two. Let's go broadcast a message and get others engaged in that conversation. So it sort of reverses the way you think about communicating. So the good news is there is a repeatable, scalable process that you can follow. This is the process that we follow within Sapient Nitro, and it is not industry specific. Really, as you think about knowing what is the problem you're trying to solve, know the consumer that you're trying to go after, and then those 3 boxes in the middle are really sort of the crucial piece. The first is looking at the consumer ecosystem. And when you say consumer ecosystem, it's not just about segmentation, but it's about understanding where they live, where they work, where they play, what they do, what they interact with, who their influencers are, what the trends are that are influencing them. The thing in the middle there is what we call a customer journey. And the customer journey is really understanding, whether it's a traditional advertising from awareness to acquisition to retention to loyalty, or the customer journey is a bride who's getting married from engagement to buying the dress to the walking down the aisle, or it's someone who's been diagnosed with a new diagnosis and understanding what that is and what the outcome's going to be. Or it's a teenager that's entering, or a tween entering puberty and trying to understand what's the changes going on in my body to actually going to college, right? So that customer journey could be very different as you define it in terms of messaging you're trying to get out there. Along the vertical there, all of the channels that you might interact with that consumer. It might be through mobile, might be through web, might be through TV, and really looking at the landscape across that customer journey, what's going to be the most impactful channel to reach that customer with the right message at the right time. We're in the mouse's town, so might as well mention the mouse. It really does take more than a mouse to create the Disney effect. If you think about Disney, what they do so well is whether you're in their theme park, you're on their website, you're on their mobile app, you're watching television, you're watching a movie, you feel the magic of Disney. They provide a really consistent experience across everything they do. So we have to think about the media opportunities here. You've got your bought media, you've got your television and print ads, you've got your owned media, which is your web, your mobile, and then you've got your earned media, your social media. And the interconnected play of all of those is really what's going to create the Disney effect, that holistic experience for the consumer. And the important part here, too, is the consumer's in the center of that. Again, they're the oil that greases the gears. So if they choose to turn you off, they can do it at any time. So it's really important that you remember consumers in control. One of the things that we do a little bit differently at St. Metro is we invert the connections plan. A traditional connections plan would say, let's buy a whole bunch of upfronts, television, and we'll plan for a big mass buy. We'll drive those people to our owned media, to our website, and then maybe we'll put a Facebook page out there and have a little bit of social conversation. We go just the opposite. We say, let's seed the conversation in the social space, find those influencers, enable those influencers to start the conversations. Let's drive them to your owned media. Owned media in this case might be your Facebook page. So you're still owning that conversation, engaging in that conversation, and then let's buy some media to amplify that conversation, get more people into the conversation. So media philosophy, got to remember it's not just about the splash. If you do a big TV buy and you just get a splash but you don't think about the ripples, you've wasted money. The market and consumer and technology are constantly changing, so remember you've got to reset normal on a regular basis. Make sure that your tactics are measurable and continually look to optimize those tactics. So there's an explosion of new interactive mediums. It's changed the customer landscape, the customer experience. Customers expect consistency of message, consistency of experience across all channels. That contextualized relevant content, being able to really connect with the consumer's passion points, what is it that drives them and motivates them, is really important. And ultimately, remember, it's the age of convergence. Our IT group and our marketing group can't sit like this. They need to sit like this because it's in the age where brand, communications, and technology all have to be integrated. A couple examples really quickly. The thing that's great about the health message is that healthy lifestyles are not a fad, and we see across the private sector, many leaders in just about every category are taking advantage of this sort of trend that will be an ongoing trend. The thing that we see that is consistent of those brands that do it really well, there's a couple of things. One, they're using social influence. The second, they're using gamification. And by gamification, I mean they're actually rewarding people, they're badging people, they're recognizing people for behaviors that are positive behaviors. So the ability to really reward and motivate and use social pressures, use friends competition, good way to be able to change behaviors. A couple of examples of companies that are doing it well. This is a company that's called Switch to Health. It's a little health band that you wear, and it measures, it tracks your activity and your behaviors, your active behaviors, and you actually get points based on how active you are. And then there's a whole bunch of different retailers that you can then get rewards based on your level of activity. So it's really directly correlating positive behavior to getting rewards that are things that are important to you. Here's another example. This is a really neat mobile app, which is called MyFitnessPal. And what it allows you to do is you and a community of friends can sign up for this, and you track all of your diet. You can enter, at Cheesecake Factory, and I just had a big honking piece of cheesecake. It will actually put in the calorie count for that, but it also tell all your friends that you just ate a big honking piece of cheesecake. And so then your friends get to say to you, hey, you know what, you might want to run that extra mile tomorrow, and sort of motivate your behaviors to make sure that you're then staying active and meeting your goals. You'd expect it from athletics and sports apparel companies, Adidas, Nike. They're all doing things where it creates communities that people can get engaged with. They can share their performance. They can motivate each other. They can be motivated by other sort of professional athletes. So we expect it from the sports industries. But what we don't expect it from is, this is one of our clients that is in the fast food industry, and we're working with them to try and change healthy behaviors of choices for kids in kids' meals. So what we're doing is we're creating a bit of a game where, based on what the child chooses, if they choose apples or they choose the milk for their kids' meal, they'll get more points. Those points then translate to online things that they can get. It might be, some sort of online game or some sort of video download, but it directly allows, a connection between behavior and getting something that I get rewarded. The other thing that we're doing is recognizing that mom is a big influencer. We're creating it so that mom also can get points. Based on various things that she does, she can collect those points and hold those points in a bank so that when her child does something positive at home, not necessarily related to buying the right food, she can then reward those points, put them in her child's bank, who can then go get rewards. So really influencing behaviors and influencing the influencers who can influence behaviors. So when we think about an advertising campaign overall, a couple of reminders of things that we need to think about. We need to be present where our audiences are. We can't target and try and yell at them. They're not going to hear us. We need to be addressable, accessible, social, shareable. The way that we're going to do that is by being relevant. We need to connect with passion points. Find the people, what drives them, what motivates them. Find those who are already vocal around the topic. Give them a voice. Drive reach and scale through media buys. Again, once you've seeded that conversation, started to engage those influencers. Of course, we want to do all the best practices, leveraging search, test and optimize, ongoing social listening. I didn't talk much about this, but the best part about digital is that with social listening, you can actually find in real time what the reaction of consumers are to whatever thing it is that you put out there. Really fascinating study. So the future, where we are today, we're just sort of trying to listen and understand what consumers are thinking, but we want to very soon start to really get out there with grassroots engagement. Really, depending on what your message is, find those influencers that are ready and willing and want to talk. Give them a voice. One of the things that's important to think about is you look at social media and you think, oh, there's all of these people out there. The reality is only about 2% of those people are going to be the people that are talking. So you want to make sure that you give those people the biggest reward and recognition to talk on your behalf. Then we want to drive towards this gamification, rewards, engaging people in the behaviors that we're trying to drive, and ultimately use big media buys to engage more people in the conversation. So the reality, the future started yesterday. Consumers are way ahead of us. They've created social media. They've created these behaviors. They are eager for us to catch up.